My name's Gary Gray. I work for Cisco. I've been given the opportunity to talk this afternoon for a while to possibly introduce a new concept to you, and that's Cisco Sell Servers. And I want to explain, if I may, in half an hour or so, that Cisco Sell Servers, why we sell servers, how we've been successful. The answer is yes, you probably guessed that. And why we've been quite successful in this. So that's what we're here for. Hopefully, you know, the door's at the back if that's taken you by surprise. But let's have a look at that. I wanted to start by just giving a high-level overview of why Cisco have entered this marketplace and what kind of problems we're trying to solve. There's all kinds of issues that are out there that probably you know far better than I do around compliance and all this kind of good stuff. But it was brought home to me in real terms what we're trying to do when a colleague of mine visited a bank in the East End of London just before Christmas last year. And he found out that they didn't have a Christmas tree, or rather, when he found out, it was in the huge foyer, if that's where it is in a bank. And upon asking why they didn't have a Christmas tree, expecting to get an answer of, well, we couldn't afford it, or there was perhaps some pseudo-religious reasons, the answer was, oh, we can afford a Christmas tree, but we can't find a way to re-provision enough power in the building to get some flashing lights on it. 5 minutes later, he was in a room that looked something like that. That wasn't the exact data center that he was in. But that data center manager had been asked to stand up in the corner, a new rack running a SAP environment in a test dev environment. And that IT director knew that they couldn't re-provision enough power to get some flashing lights on a Christmas tree. So what the chances of powering up a rack was pretty slim. This is what Cisco are looking to do in the data center generally, and hopefully we'll hear in a few minutes around the server platform specifically. But let's make sure we keep it real as well. Be aware that I've been exposed to questions as directors: why will your servers help me sell more margarine? Why will your servers help my boat go faster? Quite topical rather, because that was actually a America's Cup team a couple of years ago. And the answer is time and money. What Cisco are looking to do, certainly in the server environment, is give you back some time, give you back the time of people that are typically very clever. And this eye chart explains a little bit further why and what we're trying to do, in that what this represents is the cost of servers. And you'll see the actual cost of the tin, the product itself, has gone pretty much stayed level for several years. The cost of managing a server in the old-fashioned world, where you had one server and one application running on it, the cost and time to manage that has stayed pretty much the same. But this growing purpley bit here, that represents the management overhead for virtualized servers. We all know straight off the bat that when you virtualize your servers and you bring down the amount of servers from, I don't know, 20 to 4 or 5 using magic stuff by, say, VMware, it reduces the amount of tin that you've got and power and cooling, all that good stuff. But it actually increases the management of that. The OPEX goes up dramatically, and it's that Cisco are looking to reduce, and looking to reduce specifically with Cisco UCS, the Unified Compute System. And it's looking at that Cisco decided we're going to enter the server market. And what we're going to do differently is not the actual blade server itself. We reckon that Intel are pretty good at making CPUs, Samsung or whoever are pretty good at utilizing the silicon and making DIMMs and all this kind of good stuff. But let's have a look at the way that servers are put together, the architecture and the management of that. Have we been successful? Before I go on to talk about why, well, yeah, I'd say so. In only 4 years Cisco have been in this marketplace, and already globally we're the second largest blade server vendor in the world, where they look at revenue or look at servers that's shipped. And we're pretty pleased with that. All of a sudden we are seeing that within a shrinking marketplace, Cisco is selling more and more servers compared to other vendors that are selling less. So we're doing something right, I'd suggest, and clearly I'm hopefully going to expand on that a little. A few more numbers around the success that we've had, even across the whole range of servers, whether it be rack servers, blade servers, or whatever. We've, after 4 years in the top 5 vendors. For Cisco now, again, I keep mentioning after just 4 years, it's a $2 billion a year business, and that's rising. The commitment from Cisco into this space is immense. There's no, our great leader, John Chambers, he never talks publicly or privately, internally, without talking about the importance of data center and the products and solutions we're selling into there, and the importance that they have for Cisco generally. Even our friends at Gartner have put us, after such a short time, as a visionary in this environment. One thing I don't know if you're aware, when you do work with Gartner and you sign up to working with them so that they will put you in the magic quadrant, is that you absolutely can't talk about trend. When they pull out their latest magic quadrant, that is the truth, and you cannot talk about where you were several years ago, but I'm going to anyway. As you can imagine, 4 years ago, Cisco weren't on there. We've come from 4 years ago, just from this plane, and the trend is absolutely to that top right-hand corner. Remember that a lot of credence is put in by Gartner on your legacy, what you were doing 10 years ago in this space, and clearly Cisco weren't there, but I'm comfortable that that trend will continue, and you never know, Cisco, in the eyes of Gartner, might even be the furthest top right in the near future. So what are we doing differently? Well, to explain that, let me take you back in time, so the screen is all wavy, and look at what a blade server looked like when it was invented. You may or may not remember a team left Compaq and then in 2001 created a blade server. They realized that with the emergence of SAN, that you didn't need the capability to have as much direct attached storage on your rack servers, so they stripped off a lot of the coach work, put the blade on its side and put it in a chassis, and then the storage was somewhere else connected by a fibre channel. And do you know what? Nothing much changed, and it's that Cisco started to look at. In that, what built over time was a blade architecture that became more and more complex. In each of the chassis, typically there'd be a LAN interface that helped you move your traffic into your local area network. There'd be a fibre channel SAN interface that would obviously go into your storage area network. There'd be management modules which would manage your chassis. But it became quite complex. So within each individual rack, you had, if you like, several compute nodes within a chassis, and they were like an individually managed server platform. It became complicated, difficult to scale. So what Cisco has looked at doing is started to simplify that. We're not talking about management yet, we're just talking about the bricks and mortar, what you've got in your chassis and what your cables need to be connecting to. We unified the management, putting the management in 2 units called fabric interconnects. If any of you are familiar with Cisco Nexus switching technology, they're built on the Nexus 5000 technology. One of the things about Nexus 5000 is that it uses data center bridging, data center Ethernet, enabling all the connectivity south of those to be over fibre channel over Ethernet, meaning whether it's CIFS traffic, NFS traffic, they can all be connected just on one cable. You can use more cables, as we'll see later, if you want to increase the bandwidth, but in terms of connectivity, all you've got in each chassis is your blades, you've got connectivity up into your fabric interconnects, you've got power and you've got cooling. And that's it, compared to what we used to have in each individual chassis. So in effect, what the legacy design was for each chassis, Cisco looking to do in a full compute platform, still only managed by the 2 fabric interconnects, and those 2 fabric interconnects are your gateway into your LAN and your SAN, and your management sits on just those 2 modules. So the whole system is one server platform to manage, just behind one management tool. At the moment, up to 160 servers. Architecturally, we're capable of 320, but we've not got yet in terms of the actual capability. But in time, it'll be 320, but 160 servers we can manage in one domain. So just to be clear, if you just have one chassis and a handful of blades, you need 2 fabric interconnects, which in reality is just 3 management IP addresses, but it's just one UCS manager. If you add another chassis, you know what? It's still that, still one management interface. Add another chassis, and we keep going until we've got up to 160 blades, just behind one management overhead, one management tool that sits in the fabric interconnects. Just another word on the cabling. Typically, you'll just have one cable, or a couple of cables, daisy chained up into your fabric interconnect. The only reason that you'd add more cables is for bandwidth, not connectivity, for bandwidth. So once you've decided your bandwidth, connect it up and then walk away. And all your management is done after that behind a pane of glass, behind UCS Manager. I encourage you to jump onto YouTube. You'll probably remember that Cisco data center. And if nothing else, the first video that you see on the left-hand side, it was taken by our team in Amsterdam, our data center team, and it shows them receiving a box with a UCS chassis in it, putting a stopwatch in front of the camera, and they take it out, they install it, they cable it up, and they provision a server onto that, and it's timed. To actually get the chassis up and running and connected, 7 minutes. To get a live server application on there, 21 minutes. I encourage you to do it. It's also got a great Who soundtrack. There's loads of pieces on there detailing the kind of things that I'm just skimming over this afternoon. Fortunately for a lot of people, I've not had the task of having to manage or reconfigure or configure any servers, but I'm pretty comfortable. I'd rather walk into a server room with a guide and a screwdriver into that one as opposed to that one, and that's the kind of changes that we're making in terms of the architecture. Reduce the amount of cables that you've got to buy, configure, reduce the amount of pieces of tin you've got to buy, power up, cool, manage. So that's the tin that I've touched on. We've simplified the cabling and the chassis. Let me now, if I may, touch on the management, UCS Manager. And one of the key parts of UCS Manager is something called service profiles. And imagine a service profile being what we all want a SIM card to be in our phone. I'm one of the few people who, I'll not bore you with why, I own my telephone, but my SIM is a Cisco SIM. When I broke my telephone a couple of weeks ago, I went into Banbury, where I live, and bought a phone, and I expected to be able to just put my SIM in and off I go and it works, everybody's happy. But of course it didn't, fool that I am, because all my contacts were saved on the phone, not my SIM. And even my displays, my ringtones and everything, and even I couldn't access my my work information because I had to go back and talk to my IT department to open up the security gateways and all this kind of good stuff. But imagine, if you will, that all of your identity was on that SIM, so you could take your SIM out, put it into another phone, and in 1 minute everything that you wanted from your personal phone was on another phone. This is what Cisco are trying to do with service profiles, or indeed are doing with service profiles. What we encourage customers to do is that when a blade server arrives in a box, it'll have a personality on it. It'll have some names on there, it'll have some BIOS settings, firmware revisions. We encourage you just to ignore that. Just put your blade server into your chassis and walk away, and then go and build what you want that server to look like. And all we treat the actual server is stateless. We don't really care what it thinks it is. What we're going to do is just using drop-down menus is build a server, a profile of a server, not in a piece of tin, not in a little card, not in a SIM card, in an XML file. So using all the different, and more, all the different options that you've got, that you see there just on drop-down menus, build what you want that server to look like in an XML file, and then point it at that blade that you've just installed. So you can probably guess, if you then go and want to re-provision another server, you can use that same service profile and point that at another blade server. You've re-provisioned another server. You do not have to go and change any cabling. You don't have to do anything within your chassis. It's all done by building service profiles. The benefit, of course, is time. Reducing the amount of time that it takes to do any of the tasks that you would usually have within a server environment, changing the BIOS settings, upgrading the firmware. You can just move one service profile to another blade, and it doesn't care what the firmware is on that blade. It doesn't care what the BIOS settings is. All it cares about, it just treats that blade as stateless, and all it cares about is what the server looks like that you've built in a service profile. So I've touched on the architecture, the management. But one thing I need to make clear is that Cisco understand, for once maybe, in this world, it's not really about your server. It's about, in your data center, if nothing else, making the applications look good. The application is key. And that's what Cisco have understood and realized, moving all the stack down, that Cisco needs to work with ecosystem partners. And I'll just highlight a couple, our friends at EMC and NetApp. Might be a bit of a surprise to know, but Cisco have worked very closely within R&D with EMC and NetApp for about 14 years now. Nothing to do with the arrival of UCS. It was to do with the arrival of Cisco's MDS platform, the fiber channel networking switches that we brought into play. And of course, to start to design those, we needed to work, or wanted to work, with best-of-breed storage vendors. And that's why we're seeing more and more smart solutions, that we're calling them, that are de-risking it for the customer. So if a customer previously wanted, do you know what, I want best-of-breed storage, and I've decided that that's NetApp. I want best-of-breed server, and I've decided that that's Cisco. But you know what, I want the vendors to have some skin in the game when it comes to design and support. Just throw one example, the FlexPod, which is the NetApp and Cisco smart solution that we've got. What we've created are validated designs. So you look at what kind of size that you're after in terms of perhaps the VMs or that kind of thing. You will find a validated design that's been built by Cisco and NetApp, and it's not just a high-level Visio type diagram. This absolutely drills down into the cabling, what cable goes into what port and into what port, so that you know that this is going to work. And also, when it comes to support, if you buy a FlexPod, you will get a couple of service contracts. You will get one from NetApp and one from Cisco. But if you call Cisco and we decide that actually we think it's a NetApp issue, you will not be asked to call NetApp. Cisco will own that as a call and work with NetApp to solve your problem. So we've got unified support on a converged infrastructure that we guarantee will work. Just to finish up, I just want to take that to a next level and look at what customers are asking us that they want to do next in their environment. So you've helped us with a server platform that we appreciate is easy to manage than my legacy tools. The architecture simplified. You've worked closely with storage vendors to help build a converged infrastructure that's supported and de-risked. Can you start to automate a lot of the daily jobs that we need to do in that environment? I just wanted to touch on that. The answer is yes. And we do that with a product called UCS Director, which previously was a product called Cloudpeer, that Cisco looked at designing our own manager of managers, for want of a better phrase, and also Cisco looked at whether acquisition might be a better route, and in this case it was, and we bought a company called Cloudpeer, and with a view to tweaking that, focus it onto UCS, and our storage vendors, NetApp and EMC should be in there to help manage and automate a lot of your day-to-day activities. So if ever we talk to you, hopefully we can, with the help of our friends at Misco Systemax, around looking at this kind of solution for your environment, we'll introduce the opportunity to start to automate a lot of the daily tasks that we've got within that environment. I've picked out, as you can imagine, quite extreme cases of the benefits of this kind of environment, but I've not made these up. These are public case studies where our friends at the Hay Group, they've put their hand up and you said you can publicly claim that the UCS environment that you've installed makes my disaster recovery 50% better, faster. And similarly, we've got hundreds of case studies publicly on Cisco.com which will help confirm that Cisco are doing something different in the UC, in the server environment. It exists, it's robust, it's not just sat in some test dev environment, it's on some of the world's largest live production environments, and it works. So in summary, what we've tried to do, and a lot of us feel that we absolutely have, is create a server platform which, compared to the legacy platform, is more efficient, it's far more simple, it's agile, and it's lower cost. Absolutely lower cost in terms, definitely in the OPEX, and we compete pretty well in the CAPEX environment. So by reducing the management overhead, simplifying the architecture, that's what Cisco have done differently with their with our Cisco Unified Compute system. And thanks for your time. If you've got any questions or comments, any abuse, I'll be down on the Cisco stand, or I'll be around. So I encourage you, if you're looking to do something within your server environment, talk to our friends at Misco, ask to see whether we can come and prove to you that the Cisco UCS environment is different and better than what you've previously used. Thanks for your time.